Story 1. Officer Philip Brailsford was acquitted in the murder of Daniel Shaver. He now collects $3,600 a month from the city of Mesa because he is medically retired due to post-traumatic stress disorder after shooting an unarmed young man who was face down in a hotel hallway, begging not to be shot. Story 2. The people behind and perpetuating the current Sudanese civil war, specifically Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. Over 8.8 million internally displaced, 3.5 million international refugees, over 500,000 dead from malnutrition, with another approximately 300,000 suffering from it. Story 3. Don Leon Blankenship was convicted of conspiring to violate mine safety standards, which led to the deaths of 29 West Virginia miners in 2010. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison and fined $250,000. Story 4. Chris Brown and Sean Combs had their radio play drop significantly after their actions came to light, but they are still earning substantial income. For example, Sean Combs's radio play decreased by 86%, which is substantial, but 14% of his previous airplay remains, resulting in considerable listens and revenue. Edit. I stand corrected about where Robert Kelly's money is going. Story 5. Travis Scott. 10 people died crushed and suffocated at Astroworld, and no one seems to care anymore. Keep in mind, they were literal teenagers. Story 6. Oprah Winfrey. Have many women suffered sexual abuse from Harvey Weinstein because a powerful woman, Oprah Winfrey, ignored the truth about Weinstein? Story 7. Dr. Dre publicly assaulted women. He kicked Dee Barnes in the stomach, smashed her head against the wall, pulled her hair, stomped on her fingers, and tried to push her down some stairs. He laughed and joked about it for years with his collaborators, again in public. No one seems to bring this up, yet he is now praised as a musical genius. Beats by Dre seems inappropriate given this history. He eventually issued a public apology for his behavior, but only 25 years later. If Mark Wahlberg is mentioned repeatedly, Dr. Dre should also be mentioned at least once. Story 8. I'm still amazed Andrew Dick gets to walk around unassisted. The way he lives up to his name has at least earned him a limp. Story 9. These questions would be more interesting if politicians were excluded. That said, Chris Brown is still unbelievably popular despite being an absolute piece of trash. Story 10. Karla Homolka, also known as one half of the Barbie and Ken killers, took part in the rape and murder of at least 2 women, including her 15-year-old sister, Tammy Homolka. She cooperated with Paul Bernardo, secured a highly favorable legal deal, and when her involvement became known, the prosecution could not increase her sentence. She is living her life under different aliases, with children, somewhere in Montreal. Story 11. Anthony Kiedis, most of the Red Hot Chili Peppers honestly, but especially him. He admits to statutory rape of a 14-year-old in his autobiography, once before knowing her age and once again after. That is just one story of him being a pedophile and a creep. Story 12. I was thinking about Vincent Kennedy McMahon and how he does not seem to be receiving much public criticism for being an allegedly vile rapist, among other terrible qualities. Story 13. Rupert Murdoch. Literally everything that has gone wrong in the last 30 years can be traced back to him. Story 14. It seems that people have forgotten that Jenny McCarthy can probably be traced back to being patient zero in the modern push to delegitimize vaccines. Story 15. Tom Cruise is number 2 in a cult that routinely makes people disappear, blackmails individuals, and separates families. This is very serious. He also abandoned his child. However, some people still say he is a great actor. Story 16. The Sackler family are individuals who knowingly made billions off the suffering of millions of people. Story 17. Howard Stern. I do not know how he escaped the Me Too movement. The way he treated women guests was deplorable, but somehow he got a free pass. Story 18. Rafael Eduardo Cruz. I know he receives a lot of criticism, but it is not as much as he deserves. All the criticism that has ever existed in the universe does not even begin to cover what he deserves. Story 19. Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, and all of these career politicians who have become millionaires while in Congress. Story 20. Alex Jones. I cannot understand how he is still on the air instead of sleeping in his car somewhere. Story 21. Individuals convicted of child exploitation offenses are listed in a public registry containing their faces, names, and locations. Despite this, they are permitted to live freely in society. Story 22. Chris Brown should have been jailed after the Rihanna assault, and his career should have ended. Hopefully, this case in England results in a long sentence for him. Story 23. Michael Vick. I saw a post about him on X a few days ago. It was a beautiful picture of him, his wife, and 4 or 5 children, all impeccably dressed for a family photo, standing in a large room in a mansion. They looked great, and the post praised him and his fatherhood. I commented that he is a psychopath who tortured and killed dozens of dogs for entertainment and money, despite being a multimillionaire who could have afforded any other form of entertainment. I said people like him do not change and become empathetic toward animals just because they were arrested for torturing them. I told Michael it is never going away. Story 24. Brock Turner's mother is still advocating to lower punishments for sex offenders and wants to make the registry list temporary. She is an advocate for rapists. Story 25. I agree with all of these and was trying to find one that had not been mentioned. Henry Ruggs III. The National Football League player who was driving over 150 miles per hour and hit and killed a woman and her dog in Las Vegas. That was in 2021. He received 3 to 10 years in prison and is eligible for parole next year. Driving under the influence deaths are never handled correctly if you ask me. You killed 2 people. You need 15 or more years at a bare minimum, and I am being kind. Story 26. Winnie the Pooh is a character often used in comparisons related to China. The Chinese government reportedly engages in the removal of organs from a segment of its population. Story 27. Tom Cruise not receiving enough criticism is proof that you can get away with anything if you do not act antisocial publicly. Story 28. Kardashians. I despise all of them. I met some people who agree with me, but the majority seem to like them. Story 29. Victor Salva, director of Powder and Jeepers Creepers 1 and 2, is a convicted child molester. He sexually assaulted child actors in his film Clown House and filmed the abuse. He was also found in possession of child pornography. Despite this, he continues to make films. Many say he served his time, but movies like Powder, when analyzed critically, reveal disturbing elements that align with common predatory behaviors toward victims, leaving a sick feeling in viewers. Whenever new projects of his are released, people often protest and highlight his crimes. His victims have been vocal about their opposition to his work being allowed to continue. While he served his sentence, there is no reason to forget his actions or allow him to live a peaceful life without accountability. Story 30. Jeff Bezos' laugh sounds like he taxes air, but people still act like he is just a smart businessman and not the final boss of capitalism. Story 31. Joseph Barcy. Anyone who grew up watching either The Land Before Time or All Dogs Go to Heaven knows what I am talking about. Story 32. Donald J. Trump. He deserves all the hate. All of it. Whatever amount is going on now is not enough. Clearly. Story 33. Casey Anthony. Why is she still living her best life? I am appalled she is not driven insane by public hatred. Story 34. All the parents who deny their children proper medical care because of their religious beliefs, and then the children end up dying. Sadly, it is a long list, and in some states like Idaho, they cannot be legally prosecuted because their religious beliefs give them an exemption for harming their children. It is very troubling. Story 35. Which talk show host tried to get Beyoncé to either A. Not drink alcohol and prove she is pregnant, or B. Drink alcohol to cover up and risk her baby getting fetal alcohol syndrome? That talk show host. Story 36. Arthur Laffer is an economist who provided the pseudoscience justification behind trickle-down economics, arguing that cutting taxes would increase revenue by energizing the economy. You can largely thank him for the $35 trillion federal debt that will eventually harm the economy and already takes up 14% of all federal spending in the form of interest payments on the national debt. That is more than what is spent on national defense. Story 37. Chris Brown. I can't believe people still like and support him, especially women. He has not tried to redeem himself and is still a problematic abuser even years later. Story 38. George W. Bush started two wars that wasted a tremendous amount of money in exchange for thousands of American deaths and tens of thousands of deaths of people from other countries. Story 39. America's current president. Hear me out. I know he receives a lot of criticism, but does he get as much as he deserves? No, he does not. There is room for improvement. Story 40. My local congressperson and senators. Globally, Congress members, members of parliament, senators, and similar positions have very high rates of incumbency. It is always someone else's fault for whatever government drama is unfolding at the moment. But the truth is my congressperson is right there in the mix along with everyone else. They need to be voted out if they are not siding with you and standing up for you. Check their voting record. Story 41. Mr. Beast is too soft compared to how shady the Mayan ruins fiasco and his artificial intelligence thumbnail tool plagiarism drama were. Total low-key villain energy that hardly anyone is criticizing him for. Honestly, this person gives away houses and cars but also steals creative ideas and breaks laws in Mexico. Yet Reddit still calls him a saint. Come on, give the criticism where it is due. Story 42. Noam Chomsky is admired by left-wing activists and college students who are unaware that he supported Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge and denied the genocides in the Balkans. He is considered by many to be a terrible human being and a pseudoscientific charlatan. Story 43. This is not the top of the list by any means, but I am always surprised that Jon Hamm is still getting work and is well-liked in Hollywood. Story 44. Jim Carrey was right there beside Jenny McCarthy, promoting the anti-vaccine movement and claiming vaccines cause autism, pushing the discredited study by Andrew Wakefield. No one questioned it. I will always despise him for that, as he has never retracted his claims or support, nor apologized. Story 45. Every chief executive officer of a real estate company, thank you very much for not allowing people to buy homes at a fair price so you can use these properties as short-term rentals. Story 46. The ladies on The View are a misinformed, out-of-touch, and privileged group of people. Story 47. There are many problematic people in this thread that we all agree on. I will add Neil Patrick Harris. He hides behind Doug Hauser, musicals, and his sexuality. However, this is a man who, for Halloween, created a charcuterie board designed to look like Amy Winehouse's corpse in the morgue, literally labeled, "The Corpse of Amy Winehouse." His husband tweeted a picture of it and said, "Look who showed up for dinner." I understand being a pretentious, sassy gay. I appreciate it. But at some point, you cannot say offensive words on television and have Halloween parties featuring iconic corpses as the food. At some point, you are not a 20-year-old. You are a grown person. Expecting all your friends to compliment your musical performances and then dropping them if they don't is excessive. Not remembering someone who was married to a writer on your show, whom you met several times with media present, is inconsiderate. Story 48. As far as I can tell, both David Walliams and Matt Lucas are highly suspect and long overdue on some serious abuse charges. I am not sure what the delay is. Maybe the British authorities can provide more information. I wanted to share a video I saw from a young man who spoke about being abused by David Walliams. However, I have not been able to find it again. He was very honest and described how difficult it was to be taken seriously by the police. If anyone else can find it, please share it here. The level of cover-up by both the British Broadcasting Corporation and the London Metropolitan Police is truly comparable to the Seville case. Story 49. Oprah. She is the Joe Rogan of women. Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, Deepak Chopra, The Secret, John of God, J.D. Vance, Jenny McCarthy, the entire troubled teen industry, and the entire anti-vaccine movement. Story 50. The landlords who own more than 50 properties and continue buying more while regular people cannot afford rent. Everyone acts like it is just smart business, but they are literally hoarding a basic human need for profit. It is surprising how that is considered normal. Story 51. George W. Bush. What he did in Iraq was no different than what Vladimir Putin did in Ukraine or what Benjamin Netanyahu did in Gaza, except that the nation he attacked was on the other side of the world, not on the United States border. The result was 100,000 dead Iraqis and 4,000 dead United States soldiers, all leading to the rise of the Islamic State. That is a conservative estimate, by the way. Yet, he seems to be beloved, certainly by Michelle Obama and the United States elites. Story 52. Hassan Piker, in my humble opinion, lightly masks his anti-Semitism behind the veil of being pro-Palestine or anti-Zionist. However, he often says extremely anti-Semitic things, such as claiming every Israeli is an immigrant from Brooklyn or outright declaring that he supports the Houthis. Story 53. Ray Lewis. He was at a minimum involved in another person's murder, then lied about it and pled guilty to obstruction of justice. However, anyone with common sense can see that he was likely more involved than just obstructing justice. He was never able to explain what happened to the suit he was wearing that night. He literally has a statue of him in front of M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. Story 54. Karl Malone. Story 55. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a person accused of having relationships with his wife and maid simultaneously, and was reported to have harassed female co-stars on set. Story 56. Taylor Swift. I see the same people hating billionaires, saying eat the rich, and raving over Taylor. I don't get it. Story 57. Madonna, to me, is mean. Cher, Lady Gaga, and others have talked about how mean and rude she is. She dates men much younger than her children in their early 20s. It is okay to date with an age gap, but her gaps are very large. When a man dates someone old enough to be their grandchild, younger than their own children, it is gross. The same applies to her. Feels very creepy and perverted, like they are dolls she plays with. They are babies. They have not even been out of high school for 10 years. It feels predatory. Lastly, she is not that talented. She cannot sing and her dancing skills are minimal, about 7 out of 10. I know that she kind of paved the way for the pop stars of the 2000s and onward, but imagine her performing against Britney Spears, Ariana Grande, Kelly Clarkson, Shakira, Beyoncé, and Lady Gaga. They would all outperform her easily. Story 58. George Soros. Only including this because many assume the question is simply about someone already widely disliked, but you need to express virtue more strongly. Story 59. Hillary Clinton. Several women accused Bill Clinton of sexual assault. This feminist icon smeared and demeaned them in the press. That was totally unnecessary, and by doing that, who knows how many women saw it and decided not to report their own sexual assaults. Story 60. Donald Trump. Some people say he already receives plenty of hatred, but since it is not all of the hatred, it is not enough. Story 61. Elon Musk negatively impacted Austin. I regret not having had the chance to confront him in person when I lived there. He deserves strong criticism. Story 62. Renee Brock. It is shocking how many people react to her story by saying, "She meant well. She just got in over her head." Story 63. Ty Haney, the founder of Outdoor Voices. I have many friends and acquaintances who worked there during her tenure, and they have all described her as difficult to work with. She often promotes herself as a strong female leader and victim of the patriarchy, but in reality, she is a narcissist and a poor businessperson. I hope Outdoor Voices fails. Story 64. The people who actively and passionately hate billionaires with their subscriptions to Amazon Prime and the 14th package of the month. For clarity, if you hate them, that is fine. If you take a holier-than-thou moral stance by hating these billionaires while supporting them and not genuinely caring about your position, you are being insincere. Story 65. Bruce Jenner. Only using her former name because she was involved in a fatal accident and because she advocates only for her own rights, not transgender rights. Story 66. This will probably get buried, but Kodak Black is a rapper who is also a convicted rapist. For some reason, Donald Trump pardoned him from his sentence before the end of his first presidency. The artist has since collaborated with Kendrick Lamar on the Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers album. Story 67. My mother-in-law retired at 57 in 2020 and began traveling the country with her 66-year-old husband in their recreational vehicle. The problem is that in 2024, her deceased sister's daughter had cancer. Instead of canceling their usual trip to Arizona to help out, She pressured other relatives to do their part while she was out of state. She wasn't around, so why harass already stressed adults daily? This is personal and biased. It has been a difficult couple of years watching her and her husband leave a large house to travel in their recreational vehicle whenever they want. Meanwhile, a single mother of 3 crammed into a 2-bedroom apartment had a car breakdown, making chemotherapy extremely difficult. And that mother's sister, who also has 3 children, is shamed every day for not doing enough. Watching people I know suffer, knowing that we have relatives with the time and resources who choose not to help is beyond frustrating. Story 68. Scott Peterson had a job, and his neglect cost children their lives. The fact that the charges were acquitted is mind-boggling. The Uvalde Police Department is also involved. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.